violence traps 1 in 4 women.
I knew that he was going to end up killing me.
How to spot the signs.
The chances of homicide in that first 70-star window skyrocket.
That's today.
1 in 4 women in the U.S. will experience domestic violence in their lifetime. Those who haven't may wonder, if it's so bad, why doesn't she just leave? Prevention and education manager at domestic violence shelter Laura's House, Jennifer Ponce, says it's not that simple. Thank you for being here. Can you talk a little bit about what people need to know when it comes to fleeing a violent situation?
Well, something you said is key. It is not that easy to leave your abuser. We have all of these expectations of our victims and our survivors. If somebody hits me, I'm going to go. If somebody calls me a name, I'm just going to end it. The simple fact is it's not that easy, because domestic violence is about 2 things. It's about power and it's about control. So this perpetrator, they have a need. They have a need to have power and control, and they have a need to have power and control over you. So a lot of times we see emotional abuse, psychological abuse. This victim's self-esteem has been chipped away over a long period of time by the time they're ever physically assaulted by that person. We also see threats being made. If you leave me, I'm going to hurt you. If you leave me, I'm going to take the kids. So in all honesty, where are you going to go? How are you going to get out? We want people to know and understand that that's not love. That is not love. You are deserving of love, and there is a way out to get out of domestic violence and abuse.
And Jennifer, this is such an important point that you're bringing up, because it's easy for us to judge from the outside and say, well, I would do something different in that situation, and yet 1 in 4 women in the United States and 1 in 7 men have been domestically abused at some point in the past or even now. And I think you bring up a really good point about the fact that it's gradual.
Yes.
It's not that on your first day they're striking you. There's a aspect of coercive control where they start to isolate you, start to deprecate your self-esteem, start to make themselves the center of your life. Only I love you, only I care about you this way. And they tell you a narrative and break you from the types of communities that you would actually get strength from. And so this type of coercive control is how they're able to keep somebody in their grasp for as long as sometimes several years.
We have a guest here today who highlights this. We're joined now by Stephanie, who lived a nightmare. Stephanie, can you tell us what happened to you?
Yes. I met a guy when I was 18 and a half. He was 18 years old. And he was pretty much the first guy that showed me attention. You know, he told me I was pretty. He just made me feel special. So we started dating. And we continued dating, and we ended up having unprotected sex. And the very first time that we had sex, I ended up getting pregnant. And so after I had my baby, my parents had advised, well, you guys really don't have any means of income, so why don't you guys go ahead and get married, and then you guys could get on welfare so you guys could get your own place. So we did. We got married. We got on welfare. We got our own place. He constantly verbally abused me after we got married. Like, it was just, every day it was getting worse. And then when I was making dinner one time, I went and I served him a plate. He took a bite. I guess he didn't like how it tasted, so he went ahead and chucked the plate at my head. He ended up grabbing me by my hair, dragging me across the kitchen, down the stairs, and banging my head. So when I looked at him, I saw nothing but pleasure in his eyes. Like, he knew that he had nothing but control over me after that. So every day, some kind of abuse continued. If it was not verbal, it was emotional, physical, sexual, which, due to the sexual abuse, I ended up getting pregnant with my second child. So during this process, like, my whole pregnancy continued nothing but abuse. I couldn't say anything right. I couldn't look at him right. I couldn't even breathe right. So during that process of me being pregnant, I knew multiple times that I wanted to leave. But he continuously kept telling me that if he couldn't have me, nobody was going to have me. And I knew it was true. Like, I knew that he was going to end up killing me, you know, if I left. So I was terrified. But after I had my second child, I looked at my kids, and I just got in the car, grabbed my kids, and I left. He ended up finding me. And by letting me know that, he lit my car on fire in the parking lot of the apartment complex where I lived to let me know that he had found me. And then that he had went up to my apartment, he kicked my door in, he shoved me on the couch and put a knife to my throat. The cops were called. He lied to the cops and said that he did it because I cheated on him, which wasn't true, but they believed him, so they didn't take him in. He didn't go to jail. So after that, I got a restraining order on him, which he did end up breaking a couple of times and going to jail for, but he only stayed one night each time. And then he ended up kidnapping me and holding me hostage, and he physically and sexually abused me. And he never went to jail for those. Every time I called the cops, he disappeared. He wasn't on premises or anything. So finally after that, he stalked me for some more, but he ended up getting involved with some really bad people, and he had to leave out of state. And that's how I was able to rebuild my life and start new, which now I'm engaged, and I have somebody very special that supports me and is very proud of me, and I'm very fortunate.
Stephanie, it does take multiple times before you can actually extract yourself from such a situation. It takes on average 7 times before somebody can successfully leave. And I'm just so glad that you kept trying for your kids and for the life that you have now. Congratulations.
Thank you. Thank you.
Stephanie, you, in vivid detail, also put to rest any notion that it's as simple as just get out, just leave. It's not that simple. It breaks my heart that the police were called so many times and that he had a knife to your throat and the excuse of she cheated on me was enough for him to just walk away. That breaks my heart. But Jennifer, you've seen so much of this. What are tips you can give to people who find themselves in a similar situation?
Well, part of the reason why understanding how to leave in a safe manner is so important is because when someone actually does leave their abuser, the chances of homicide within that first 72-hour window skyrocket. What we want people to do is to safety plan. Part of my role in prevention work is teaching people and educating them on how to safety plan and leave safely. So tip number 1 mine would be to say something. Tell someone. The reason why domestic violence is so serious in the way it is because it is a silent epidemic. Victims are taught to remain quiet and to be under that control and not to say a word. So I say find a safe person, clue them into what's going on, and give them a safe word, like Starbucks. So you know when I text Aunt Sally Starbucks, you're going to meet me in a place that's open 24 hours a day, 7 days a week, you know, an emergency room, a police station, a safe location to where you can get me out and you can get me to a safe location. Another element of that plan can be having a backpack. Have your clothes ready to go. Have shot records, cash, have your children's toys, everything that they would need in a safe location. Sometimes what I've recommended is putting this in a trunk, preferably the trunk of a car where they're not going to find it, or keeping it with that safe individual. Another thing is just educating yourself. Know what resources are available. Agencies like Laura's House, we have a 24-hour hotline. We have a shelter where you can go. Counseling, legal help. Agencies across the country offer similar things. So familiarize yourself with the local hotlines, the national DD hotline. Store these numbers in your phone. Know who you can call and where you can go.
Is there something also that people should be thinking of if you're in a domestic violence situation? Tips you can provide in terms of documenting the abuse? Because there are these elements, as Stephanie, you alluded to it, where it's he said, she said.
Yeah.
And if there's not proof, sometimes there's situations where here you are, you feel more unsafe after you call the police than before because it's he said, she said. What can people do to, either document or, quite frankly, have the proof necessary to potentially get someone behind bars who belongs behind bars?
I recommend journaling. Write everything down. Even if it's a verbal assault, write it down. Some counties, law enforcement will take record of verbal assaults, but you yourself, you need to be the best sort of timekeeper in this instance. Write down everything that's ever happened, when it happened, the day it happened. If you do show injury, typically a bruise may show up later. Take a photo yourself. Write down the time and date that this occurred. Make sure that you're keeping records. Make sure that, so if something like a strangulation occurs, you're seeking medical attention. There are so many victims who have been strangled, they seem fine, and then they die 2 to 3 weeks post the incident. So keeping record of every incident of violence, especially physical abuse, emotional abuse, working with your kids in their school. Maybe your child is having to miss school because of